Welcome to Let's Talk About It. A podcast gives a platform for real talk, real people, real topics, real conversations. Please subscribe, like, comment, enjoy this journey, and enjoy this ride. Welcome to this week's episode. And here we go.
And here we go.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to Let's Talk About It. A podcast gives a platform for real talk, real people, real topics, real conversations. First and foremost, before I introduce my guest, I would like to thank the over 6,000 subscribers that I have right now as we're recording this. Please like this podcast. Please like, please share, please subscribe, even comment. This podcast is something for me, very important for me. It gives a platform for people to tell their stories and to express themselves. This is a raw, unscripted podcast. Thank you so much for subscribing. Today, my guest, ladies and gentlemen, I heard her story on another podcaster's podcast. Tammy Lynn Connors, she has a podcast of hope, helping other people evolve. When I heard her story, I was compelled to reach out to her, got to know her. Great person. She is a fellow podcaster now. She has what she calls Breakfast of Choice on Spotify. Please download and subscribe. You're going to love that podcast. Now, her podcast, it gives a safe place to tell people's stories, which a lot of us love. Overcoming struggles, addiction, mental illness, incarceration, domestic violence, suicide, toxic family structures, which some of us know about, relationships, and more. My guest has a story how she came to this journey. She has an amazing journey. You're going to love this. I was compelled by it. I had to have her on. I'd like to introduce the very beautiful and talented Jo Summers. Jo, how are you?
Hey, Lou. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. Man, I hope I can live up to that buildup.
Oh, God, no. Trust me. When I first saw your story, I was amazed by it. What you have been through, what you've overcome. It was just inspiring. It was great. It's a great feel. So we go. Matter of fact, before we start off with this right now, how's your Sunday going? Because we're recording this on a Sunday.
Yeah. You know what? Sunday's actually my favorite day, Lou. That's kind of my day that I do a little self-care, do a little reflecting, what I've been through last week, what I need to work on for the next week. Sunday's just always been my day. And I actually love recording on Sundays because I don't know what the vibe is, but I was happy when you said, let's do this on a Sunday. So thanks for that.
Yes. I love Sundays too. Saturdays is kind of hard to record on Saturday because you get off of work, you got a lot to do. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, I missed my gym today. I missed my leg day today. So I actually overslept, which I don't really do. But I guess my body told me, nah, you ain't getting up. You're sitting down.
Yeah.
So,
our bodies know.
Yeah, exactly. Jo, let's get into your story. Okay. Let's start off from the very beginning because you have an amazing story. Let's get into you. Let's start off right before that epic 11-year-old part, but I want you to explain how you grew up, and let's talk about your story now.
Okay. Well, I grew up in San Diego, Lou. I grew up in a what I would consider just a middle class, suburban, nice neighborhood. Great kids, great families from what you see on the outside, right?
Yeah.
You see the outside of family structure. You don't see the inside. And I grew up in a good home. Parents were married. My dad was a really good provider, but that was his goal, just to be a provider. Not that that's a bad thing, but that didn't really include a lot of nurturing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He was the because I said so guy. He was the that's just how we do it. Be quiet. Dad's home now. Just be seen, not heard. I was the youngest of three. So my brothers are 4 and 7 years older than me.
Okay.
So I think by the time they got to me and I was a girl, they were probably tired, so they were done. And I was not easy. I was an easy young child. I was not an easy teenager.
Right.
Or No, I was not.
Yeah, well, you'll get to that. Come on.
I will get to that. But again, my mom was we have to ask your dad. She couldn't make a decision. She couldn't have an opinion. She couldn't, um, she was a great mom. She was kind of the Kool-Aid mom. She was great, but she wasn't really able to be yeah, go ahead and do that, or yeah, go ahead and do that. It was always, we have to ask your dad.
Yeah.
And even at a young age, Lou, that used to just piss me off.
Really?
I'm like, yes. I'm like, make a damn decision already.
Okay.
And I don't know. That's just how I came out. I can't explain that to you.
Yeah. Hey,
I
I
was
get it.
always that way. It used to upset me that she couldn't think for herself, I guess. That upset me. And I was vocal about that sometimes.
Was that
And
old school thinking, you think? That the old
yeah.
school way?
Oh, absolutely. That's just, you do what you know, right? Generational. That's how your parents were. That's how you're going to be. Until you know better and do better, that's how you're going to continue to be.
Yeah.
So not a lot of hugging, not a lot of all of those things. I can tell you, I do not remember "and I love you" from my dad my entire life.
Me either.
Now I'm sure that he did when I was little, you know what I mean? But I don't remember it as I got older. And it's not just me that doesn't remember it. My brothers say the same thing.
Okay.
So to the time on his deathbed, I said, "I love you, Dad." And he goes, "Okay." Like, seriously. So took it to his grave. And that's just how he grew up. That's just what he knew. So to be honest, I think I was just out there like many girls do. I'm not going to say I have daddy issues, because I don't really, but it was looking for love in all the wrong places, trying to get that acceptance, trying to get what you thought love was, in all the wrong ways.
Gotcha.
And I think a lot of people do that. You know what I mean? You try to find somewhere that you feel that family or that love, and not that I didn't have a loving family. I'm portraying that it was much more toxic than it was. It wasn't. It was just what they knew back then. It was that do as I say, don't question. And that doesn't really teach you how to think outside the box. You know what I mean?
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
So that's just kind of how I grew up. And I did start looking for love in all the wrong places, for real, at a very young age.
So is this the part where, you started looking in all the wrong places at age 11?
So kind of, yeah. That was, I'll be just, I'm raw, I'm honest, I'm transparent.
Right.
Started having sex at 11. And you don't even know what that is. Do you know what I'm saying? You don't know, you know what it is. Let me rephrase that. But you don't know what it means, and you don't know how you're supposed to feel, and you don't know any of those things, right? So the only reason you're doing that at such a young age is just to people please, right? It's to just think that that's what someone wants, and that's what you learn is your value.
Yeah.
And when you learn that that is your value at a young age, it really affects many, many, many areas and aspects of your life, because you learn to not value yourself as a person. You just learn to people please, and that's codependent, right? And that's something we don't learn till later. We don't really understand those things. Yeah.
That
So,
is
yeah.
11 years old. Like, did you even have a inkling about what was it about? Did you see it like in a magazine or anything like that? Did
Oh,
you hear
no.
about in the streets?
So again, my brothers are 4 and 7 years older than me. So I grew up when I was 11, Lou, let's be real. I didn't look 11. Okay. I was already developed. I was already all the things. So when I went somewhere, I didn't look 11. I probably looked 13, 14.
Yeah.
Not that that's much older, but you know what I mean? I did not look like I was 11.
Okay.
So I think I was trying to, I fell in love, as you, so to speak, if you want to call it, my first love in my neighborhood. And he was, I don't know, 4 or 5 years older than me.
Okay.
And I kind of went with, well, what is he doing? What would he want me to be doing? Do you know what I mean? Instead of, what do I want? What do I want to be doing? I didn't even know, because I'd
Yeah.
been told, remember, I'd been told my whole life what to do, how to do it, just do what I say, not as I do. And that had a big effect for sure.
Wow. Do you think that spun off from what your mom went through?
Um, oof. My mom, still to this day, Lou. Now, my mom is almost 83 and she lives with me now. She's beginning stages of dementia.
Okay.
She's never known how to take care of herself fully.
Yeah.
You know, my dad did all the financial, my dad did all the bills. He took care of all those things. She basically took care of him. You know, he put my food on the table, feed me. He would call her all the, I need this, I need that. Like, just drove me nuts, Lou. No kidding. And all the way up till the day he died, And so watching that, she just wasn't able to have, this sounds so terrible, but much of a life of her own.
Yeah.
It was all about him always, and all about what he wanted. And that's what I grew up thinking, I guess, was normal.
Yeah.
It was normal in my household, but it's not a good way to have a relationship. People say relationships are 50-50. No, they're not. They're 100-100. You give 100, they give 100. Anybody giving 50, that doesn't work, does it?
No.
So, she was just there to do all the things that wives were supposed to do, right? And I guess that's just what I saw. And so I guess I was just going to do all the things I was supposed to do, right? And that just manifested in a lot of different ways for me. I just kind of went crazy, just kind of went off the deep end, just followed my own path, I guess. And just started kind of hanging out with the wrong crowd, started hanging out with older people, started hanging out with men instead of boys that really truly were boys, but of man age.
Yeah.
And just, started, I liked motorcycles and I liked shiny things, and it was like squirrel, you know what I mean? The next big adventure, the next fun thing. And really just started doing some shit at a very young age. That's, my son is the age, he's older now than I was when I started. And I just, I can't even imagine him doing some of those things that I was doing.
So
It's crazy.
When you was going through this at age 11, when you started this,
Mm-hmm.
when I followed your path,
Mm-hmm.
you got into also drugs at the same time at 11.
Mm-hmm. I did.
Like, how was that like exposed to you at that young age?
Again, I was hanging out with older people. I used to go to someone's house that used to be outside a lot, working on his motorcycle, cleaning his motorcycle, doing all those things. And I loved motorcycles. I thought that was the funnest thing ever. And he had always told me, when I come there, it's fine if I walk by and he's outside and we're going to talk, but don't ever go to the door. Don't ever worry about the people that are coming and going. Like, just walk on by if he's not out. And, there was a lot of traffic, so to speak, at his house, coming and going and things. And you could tell a lot of people lived there. And I didn't really know what that was about back then, And of course, he wasn't home one day. And, me being the stubborn child that I was, I did talk to somebody that was coming out of the house. And that's kind of how it started. And he seemed like a really lovely guy at the time.
At the time, right?
At the time, super good looking, super, all those things. And I was just like, wow, he's beautiful. Yeah, he wasn't really so beautiful. And I just kind of got hooked up. Again, remember that I looked older than I was. So in his defense, I don't think he thought I was as young as I was either.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of people at that house, a lot of coming, a lot of going, a lot of drugs, a lot of things. And I just kind of got involved in it somehow. It just happens. It's natural progression, I guess, when you're hanging out and exposing yourself to those things. It was natural progression.
Joe, you were such a young girl, even though you look older.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
I've heard some people being exposed to it
Mm-hmm.
at a young age, but good Lord, like, he was like 11, like what he was like 11, 12, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I looked pretty innocent, right? I
Yeah.
had that look about me that I was going to get away with some things. And I think they saw that right away, that she might be able to do some stuff for us that we couldn't get done on our own. So I think there was a little manipulation there that I didn't understand, you know.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what was happening. I was just going with the flow, right? Having
Yeah.
fun, doing the things until it became kind of obvious that it wasn't so much for fun anymore. It was something that was expected of me, and that I was going to pretty much do what I was told to do, whether I liked it or not. That
And
part
this
I
is
didn't
at
like.
age 11, right?
Um,
11, 12.
Probably by this time now, 12 and 13. Yeah, too. Yeah, yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, so I just I was partying a lot, doing a lot of drugs. Meth got introduced, and that was pretty much the downfall, to be honest. Um, Once I started doing meth and kind of caught up in that cycle, and then I was selling it, I was delivering it, and just doing what I was told. Take this over here, come back, take this, come back, take this, come back. Um, until I started questioning things, right? And then I was like, what am I taking? What am I bringing back? You know, what is happening here? What am I doing?
Hold on, Joe. So at 12 and 13, I'm trying
Mhm,
to get this right.
mhm,
You started taking it and
mhm,
selling it at 12 years old.
mhm. And nobody really knew that, Lou. Everybody knew I was partying. That was apparent. I was doing things like pink hearts and, drinking and smoking weed and huffing this substance called toiline, which is actually used to clean motorcycle parts. So those things were all apparent. When the meth use started, that was not so apparent to everyone because, again, look how young I was, right? So nobody was really expecting that. So I kept that hidden for a long time, as long as I could, um, until I started doing it with other friends. You know what I mean? But I kept that hidden, really as long as I could. But that is a hard thing to hide. Meth is a hard thing to hide.
So
Um,
yeah, one question. So
mhm.
at this age, did anybody have any inkling that you was doing this? That people that you know, people you cared about, maybe a school teacher or anybody like that, did anybody have any inkling that you was doing it at all?
That we were doing drugs, yes. That it was to this extent or this issue, no. Not something you talked about, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't, it was made very clear that this isn't something you discuss, talk about, tell. Bad things will happen. People die for things like that. And
Yes.
when I came into that picture, to be fair and to be honest, they probably thought I was older and probably thought my home life wasn't a good situation, and I was more of a runaway type because a lot of the girls that were staying around there were runaways, things like that. So when they found out that, you know what, I actually had a home life and people that loved me and people that cared about me, that was a problem because it's harder to force someone to do what you want when they have people that love them and care about them. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And so I think that just kind of happened. I don't know. It happened because I was pretty smart. I was good at math. I could do sales. I could do all those things, and I looked innocent. And so if I'm walking by with a backpack, nobody's going to think twice about that, right?
Facts.
And so that's kind of how that happened. And it's not uncommon, Lou. It's not uncommon at all for young people. Well, think about the gang life. How young are the kids that start? How young are the kids that are on the streets corners? How young are the kids that are made to feel important and made to feel special? And you're doing this for me, and look how special that makes you. It starts very young.
Joe, let me tell you something. I mean, right, where I grew up at in West Philly, like, we didn't have anything. It was poor in the city area, whatever. And you need that money. And these kids are like 10, 11, 12 years old,
Right,
like, selling caps,
right.
cocaine and little cap bottles.
Mm-hmm.
Like, making like 40 off every 100. stuff like
Mhm.
that, because they didn't have the money, they didn't have the means. And they was targeting these kids because they would figure like, all right, well, they're kids and like nobody's going to really question. They can go around, they're not getting
Yeah,
adults, they're getting the kids. So they question it and they can get away with it.
right.
And I've seen it. I grew up with it, but I totally understand. Go ahead.
That's exactly the situation, just in a suburban type neighborhood in a different place where it really isn't expected, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it started. And when I realized really the extent of what was going on and what I was doing, it was a little bit too late. It was a little too late to just walk away, because I was already in it. I was in it, on it, doing it, was happening, right?
Yeah.
So I had tried to get away a few times, and it was made pretty clear that that wasn't going to go well for me. Um, I had at finally a certain point, Lou, I did walk away. Um, it didn't go well, and I can't get into the details of all of that
I
just
got you.
for reasons. But it didn't go well. And there was a time when I was being followed, and I couldn't tell the difference of, am I being paranoid or am I being followed? And it was very apparent I was being followed, and it wasn't just me that noticed. It came a time where my best friend that I was hanging out with, I wasn't a great influence on her. I wasn't, and kind of brought her into my world a little bit. And we went somewhere one night, and I actually had to apologize and say, I don't know what's going to happen here tonight, and I'm sorry. And I really thought that we weren't going to leave there that night. They were pretty angry at me for some things I had done and walked away, and all of that. But you know what? It was just time for me to walk away. And no matter, I was in a place where no matter what happened, it needed to happen for me.
Yeah.
But I didn't get any better after that. It was a way of life now. You know what I mean? Drugs were the way of life for me. And it was a lot of party and a lot of meth and a lot of older crowd. It was sex, drugs, and rock and roll. That's just how I grew up. And, um, looking back on it now, I can see the issues. Looking at it then, it seemed like it was just the times. You know what I mean? We were just having fun. We're having a great time, but I wasn't having fun anymore. It was necessity,
Let
And
me ask you one question here.
yeah.
When you think about all this at this
Mhm,
point in your life now,
mhm,
at that part, let's say like the early teenage years, because you say you was got caught up in it, it got worse. Like,
mhm.
what do you think why you did it at that teenage year
I just
that
think I
kept
was
you going?
Yeah, I was just, like I said, looking for love in all the wrong places. I thought, oh, he loves me. He doesn't want me to leave. He wants me to stay. Um, he doesn't want to let me go. He wants me to be around. I think it was that feeling that we all want, Lou. We want to be accepted. We want to be loved. We want all those things, and whether it's the correct version of it, you don't
Yeah.
always know that at a young age, right? So that's why when you're young, you're just easily manipulated,
Oh
very
yeah.
easily manipulated, very vulnerable. And obviously older people know that, right?
Yeah, we
Yeah,
know it now.
right. And older people, we were young, and older people knew it then. We just didn't know.
Quite
Um,
fully.
and those are just things you learn as you go. And I continued to do drugs. I continued to party. I was kind of out of the issue that but I just kept doing the same thing, the same people, the same places, the same things, the same playground, the same over and over, the same ridiculous men, the same ridiculous lifestyle for years. I just kept doing it. And I couldn't see a way out of it, because that's just it's just what you do. And when you start that from such a young age, you don't really have hobbies. You don't play with Barbies. You don't play with dolls. You know what I'm saying? You're out. This is your life. This is what you're doing. And so you're not hanging out with other kids your age, because that's not really what they are doing. you know?
So you never really had a childhood at all.
I did. I mean, we had a good neighborhood when I was like 8, 9, 10. We had a great neighborhood. We all played outside together. We all hung out together. We played hide and seek. We did all those things. We played football in the street. We did all those things that kids did back then.
Yeah.
But I was a lot younger. I was 8, my brothers again were 12 and 15. So I was hanging out with neighborhood kids and everything at that young age. But there was some things going on in some of my friends' houses too that were pretty crazy. My best friend in 4th, 5th, 6th grade, her house was a house of complete abuse, sexual trauma, abuse, molestation. Her brother, which happened to be bizarre, my first kiss in my very young life, he committed suicide. And Chris was 16 when he committed suicide, and that was in our neighborhood. And everybody was just shock and awe over that. You know what I mean? Because of where we lived and how we lived. It was like freaking Mr. Rogers land, And so I had just grown up different, I guess. Maybe my own mindset, Lou, was just different. I think I didn't like to be controlled, which is so funny because I was completely controlled. So I went from one avenue of controlling to a whole different avenue of controlling, and it just it never served me well, I can tell you that. Never served me well.
Like I said, your story is straight amazing. I know you said I know you said, like, I want you to get into this part. Like, so after high school, right? You went to college, right?
So I had gotten kicked out, asked politely not to come back to junior high. We were selling drugs.
That's the
politely.
Like, okay, all right.
Politely that, you might want to do something different next year. They knew we were selling drugs. The high school and our junior high had a big drug bust. They knew I was selling drugs, but they couldn't catch me. And so it was just one of those, you probably might ought to do something different next year. Me and my best friend both. And we ended up going to a different high school, which started in the 9th grade. A totally different high school than my brothers went to or the friends in our neighborhood, because we got politely asked to not come back. So we went to a different high school. Well, it wasn't even in our neighborhood. So we were using her sister's address as our address, so anything related to school, if they mailed something home or whatever, never came to my home. So as a teenager, that was beautiful, right? That was like, shoot, free reign. So we were crazy out there, Lou. We started our day getting high. We barely went to high school. We were ridiculous. We were truly ridiculous. And I can remember my only class after lunch was PE. And I told my teacher I wouldn't be there. So do what you got to do, but I'm not coming.
That's the easiest class you could have.
I didn't want to go back to school after lunch, Lou. Jeez. I was busy. That was the last. So politely got asked to not come back there as well. Actually, I didn't get politely asked. I got a letter that said you're not coming back. We were on a transfer. And so if you're on a transfer, you have to be like on your best behavior, right?
Yeah.
And I actually got good grades. And I helped other kids. I got good grades. I could go in and take a test and just pass it. And then I'd be like, peace out. I'm done. Bye. See you next week. And it was different back then. It's not like it is now when everything's computerized and, it was more personal back then. Right. So like, hey, I'm not coming to class. Sorry. But I could get good grades. I could pass my tests and do all those things. So got politely asked to not come back to that school and what I told my parents, I got the letter and I got it out of the mail. And I told my parents that, it's my manipulative shit here, that I probably shouldn't go back to that school. I wasn't doing good and didn't have great friends. And I probably needed to go to a different high school to do better. It was a complete bullshit lie. They told me I couldn't come back, but I was trying to spin that in a way that worked for me. Right.
Yeah.
So I did. And I went to a different high school. And I just couldn't make myself be there. I just couldn't. I was get dropped off, leave. I was out at lunch in the woods getting high. By that time, I think I was 14, maybe. I was a younger 9th grade. So I was like almost a year behind because my birthday was so late in the year.
Okay.
And my boyfriend that I was dating was 19. So obviously he's driving, all of those things, right? And so, he's just coming to get me, right? I'm not even in school. He hadn't been in school for years, so I'm not even going. And I was still passing. And I said to my dad, I said, I want to take my GED. And he said, I'll make a deal with you. I'll let you take your GED if you go right to college. I was like, okay, I'll do that. So that's what I did. I took my GED when I was 16 and I did go right to college. I did do what I said I was going to do. And I started going to college for administration of justice, which is so freaking funny to me now. I was classes like juvenile delinquency and intro to justice and, psychology behind the why of why you do the things you do. And I was really interested in that stuff. And that kept me going. That is stuff that I could get behind. Algebra with letters and numbers in the same equation. I'm like, this is ridiculous. But stuff that I could really get behind and like mindset and brain activity and all those things, I was into that. And so I did start kind of paying attention to what I was doing and what was happening. Now, I'll be honest, Lou, I was selling drugs on my way to college. I'll be honest. I started class at 10 in the morning. I was doing a few drop-offs before 10. And I'm 16 and I'm in college with a lot of older folks, right? It's a junior college, but I'm still, and most days I was high that I went to school, but I was still interested in what I was doing. I was still interested in being there. But life was still kicking my ass. I was still partying. I was still doing drugs. I was doing a lot of meth. And I ended up getting together with someone who was much, much older than me. He was 31. I think I was 17 when we met. We ended up moving in together. He was not a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. He had some serious personality disorders, very abusive. You never knew. It was walking on eggshells. You never know who you're coming home to, what days happen. You just never knew. It was kind of like eggshells all over again. I felt like my whole life was just eggshells, constantly walking in eggshells, from a young age to an old age. It was constantly just who am I going to run into next? And so you just learn how to be quiet. You learn how to people please. You learn how to not get your own needs met, right? You learn how to meet everybody else's and what makes them happy. And you don't even care about your own happiness, right? And that's a problem. That's a problem. And so I did college. When I moved in with him, my dad, his stipulation was, I'm not going to pay for college anymore if you're going to move in with this guy. And that was him trying to keep me going to college, right? And of course, that didn't work. I left. I moved in with him. And this was somebody that I had met at my dad's bar. My dad, so funny, decided he was going to, he ran delis and restaurants for most of my life. His parents owned a deli. He took over their deli. He was a sheriff when we were little, which I don't remember that. My other brother does, but I don't remember that. I know, right? So, yeah, crazy. He had ran delis and restaurants, and he was going to buy this bar in this place that he didn't understand the gravity of where he was buying a bar. This was a total meth biker area, right?
Yeah.
Well, I knew all the people at this place already. So that was a very difficult situation because now I'm 15, I think, when he had this bar and I knew everybody in it. That's a problem. Him trying to figure out why does my daughter know these people, right? Was a problem. And so anyway, me and him got together. I moved out. It was bad. It was not a good situation. He was very, like I said, very abusive. And my dad wasn't speaking to me at the time. He quit talking to me. And funny thing that he would do is he would have my mom deliver birth control pills to me every month because he didn't want me to get pregnant. That was his contribution of, I need to help in some way. I don't know how to help, but I think this will help. You know what I mean? He was trying. He wasn't speaking to me at the time because he was so angry at me. And I get it. I get it now as a parent. That probably didn't help me, but that was his avenue that he chose that was going to work for him and give him some sanity and some boundaries of my lifestyle. Right.
I get it. Trust me. I totally understand.
Yeah. And I do too. I understand it. And when it finally got so bad one night that I called him, and it was probably 3:30 in the morning. And I said, Dad, can you come get me? And we hadn't spoken quite a while. And he said, I'll be right there. And him and my mom got in the car, and they came and got me at 3:30 in the damn morning at a not nice part of town, where I was living I was living in an apartment for $350 a month that I made as cute as can be. I made a home out of that place, but it was $350 a month. Okay.
Yeah.
On El Cajon Boulevard, which I know you don't know where that is, but if anybody does, they'd be like, whoa. I had been living in hotels, things like that. So we got this apartment, and he came and got me, and I went back to their house, and I was trying to live there. You can't, you know what I mean? I'd already been out. I'd been on my own, tried to go back and live there. So I moved in with my cousin, party, until I came home one day, Lou. And I think it's a little sketchy on how all this happened just because of the time and my mind frame. But she said, have you seen yourself lately? Have you looked in the mirror? And I said, nope. She's like, you need to. You look like shit. And went and looked in the mirror. And Lou, I didn't even recognize myself. I still have that look of what I look like imprinted in my mind.
Wow.
And it was bad. It was the pictures that you see of addicts. I weighed 98 pounds. My eyes were black. My face was white, sunk in, sores. I just looked like death. I absolutely looked like death. And I was having some medical issues. I was having some kidney problems, couldn't use the bathroom, couldn't go to the bathroom at someone else's house, probably because I was paranoid. And so it was really bad. And I can't remember if my mom came and got me or she took me over to my parents' house. I can't remember, but they saw me and couldn't believe it. Like, we're pretty upset that I was looking how I was looking, and kind of nursed me back to health a little bit, and took me to the doctor. They had to put the catheter in me, drain my kidneys, the whole thing. It was pretty bad. The doctor said, pretty much what he said was, little lady, you continue to do much more of this, and this is going to be the end for you. And you're pretty young to be experiencing this. I think I was 17 at that point. And
Joe, let me ask you a question. At this time, right, do you remember how your mom was feeling at this time about you?
My mom went along with what my dad said. So she would still try to come and see me. Like I said, my dad would send her over once a month. She was a little bit naive and a little bit of pretending the situation wasn't what the situation was. And I tried to hide what it was from her a lot too.
Got it.
So you don't want to think that your child or your children are doing the things that they are doing and living how they're living. Even if you know it's true, you do what you can to cope through that, right?
Got it.
And try to make it better. My dad wasn't making it better. He was having a bad time. People were telling me, hey, your dad is having it rough. Like he's not good with this. He's really upset. He's eating Tums every day. Like he's not doing good with all this.
Got it.
And I was just a little bitch. I'm gonna be honest. And like, fuck him. He don't want to talk to me. He don't want nothing to do with me. He'll talk to all these ratchet MFs at the bar all day long, but he can't talk to his own daughter. I just made terrible decisions, terrible excuses. When I was living with this person, he was on parole. And my dad called his parole officer and got his parole revoked. It was on Christmas Day. I'll never forget it. And had him come picked up on Christmas Day. Well, I actually knew his parole officer, which was freaking funny. So his parole officer took me to see him in jail a few times. And I know my dad was trying to do something to get this man out of my life. I get that. Do you know what I'm saying? That's logically, totally get it.
Absolutely.
Mentally at the time, not happy about it. So it just was a struggle. It was just a struggle of him trying to know what to do, me never doing the right thing, him trying to do what he could do or knew how to do, which neither one of us knew how to navigate that situation. You know what I mean? It was a situation. He was trying to get through the best he knew how, and I was just trying to kill myself, apparently, because I was just, partying.
Oh my God.
And so there's no blame whatsoever. Like, we fixed our relationship, we got better, all those things happened. As a parent, I get how hard everything must have been that I put them through. Like, I think I get it. Maybe I don't get the magnitude, but I think
See,
that I do as a parent. I'm gonna be honest, it was pretty bad. There was raids and things that I was in. Dad knew all the officers in that town, and really it kind of kept me out of trouble. He had me followed, like, just kinds of things, just trying to make sure I wasn't going to get in more trouble than what he could handle, you know what I mean, or what he could help me with.
yeah.
And I was a hot damn mess. And when I got sick and I went to the house, I told them then that, and I had been trying to get clean. I had been trying various different things to get clean. I was just in a world and in a situation where I couldn't get out of my playground.
Really?
And I told them that I needed to leave. I said, I am never going to have any kind of life living here. It's never going to happen. I can't seem to, and I was always like the fixer, the one that people came to. Even though I was a hot mess, I was still the one that everybody came to talk. Everybody came to talk through their struggles. Everybody came to tell me about their relationships, all their problems, right? And I'm still listening and trying to help everybody else. I just didn't have anybody trying to help me. Now, my parents were, but I just never really had that. You know what I mean? I was the strong one. I appeared to be the strong one all the time. And when I told him that I needed to move, my dad said, I've got your uncle you can go live with in Washington, or possibly your cousin that you could go live with in Colorado, who I didn't know well at all. And I chose that route. I went to Colorado at 18. I think I was 18 when I left.
Wow.
Trying to get sober. And I can tell you this, the first day that I was there, that I was out walking around, someone came up to me and asked me if I wanted to party and go do some coke. The first day I was there. And I was like, is it like on my forehead? Do I have something written that says, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't understand why I was.
Wait a minute. Did you know this person when you got there or no?
No. I was literally walking at the park, walking from her house to walk to, it wasn't even a park. It was more like a lake type setting where there was a walking trail around it. And I was leaving from her house to go to the corner, to walk up to this place, to just be out in some nature, just to walk around. Nature has always been a thing for me. I grew up at the beach. I need water. That's my happy place. And I was trying to go get myself to a happy place. And this guy comes up and starts talking to me, asking me if I want to go party. And I'm thinking to myself, what is it about me? What is it that attracts? Like, I was mad about it. I was mad. I didn't go with him. I did not go, but I was mad. I was angry about it because I'm like, what is it about me? And my mom used to say it to me all the time. You have something on your freaking forehead that says, if you're on parole or you've been in prison or you're tattooed from head to toe or you're a freaking junkie, here I am. She said, it's on you. And it's true. It was like a magnet of some kind of, and now that I'm older and I've worked through it, all of these things, I know what it is. I'm an empathetic listener for people, and they can see that, right?
Yeah.
But at that time, it appeared itself more as vulnerability. And so it happened all the time. It didn't matter where I was, what kind of setting. I could be at a freaking roller skating rink. It did not matter. It just found me. And I'm not trying to be a victim at all. I'm just saying it just seemed to be a natural progression of my life. I don't know how to explain it. And so I didn't go with this person, and I went back to my cousin's house, and I was upset. I think I was crying that day. I think I hadn't even been there 3-4 days. And I think I was crying, trying to figure out, like, what is wrong with me? You know what I mean? There was something wrong with me.
That was the first time you noticed it? Like
no,
something wrong? No.
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 I had thought it for many. I can tell you a time I was going to get on a bus to go to my grandma's house, and I'm like, this motherfucker, excuse my language, is going to come sit next to me. Like, I knew the guy that was going to come sit next to me on the bus. Like, I knew it. And what do you think happened? The guy that comes it just always happened. And like I said, now I know it's some kind of frequency I put out, right? Then I was like, something's wrong with me. I'm broken. I never say I'm broken anymore. I encourage people never to say you're broken. You're healing. You're not broken. You are healing. But so he came, that happened. I remember sitting in the room crying, thinking, how is my life ever going to be different? You know what I mean? Like, this happens repeatedly. Am I ever going to be strong enough to not do this? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And a friend of mine from California, we decided, I guess, that he was going to come out and see me. Big mistake. He had lived in Colorado, so he knew a lot of people there. So I changed my places, I changed my things, but I didn't change my people. And he came out, and of course it was great to see him, because I was kind of in that space of, it's never going to change for me anyway. Right. So what does it matter? Right. No matter where I go, same shit happens. What does it matter? Poor me. Right. So he comes out and he says, we're going to go to a reunion, which I'm thinking, high school reunion. I didn't ask many questions, Lou. I'm just people pleasing, right? Make the guy
just
happy.
Going with the flow. Just
going with the flow. Go to the reunion. Well, the reunion turned out to be a bunch of guys that had just got out of prison, that hadn't seen each other in a long time, and they grew up together in a boys' home. So in about 5 minutes, I was back in it. 5 minutes, like boom, boom, here you go. And those are my people, right? My people. I got my people back, right? And so I'm happy about it and not happy about it at the same time. And I actually started preschool teaching. I was a preschool teacher. And I loved kids, and I was super happy doing that. Well, one of the guys that I had met at the reunion came and saw me at the preschool one day, brought me some flowers, brought a teddy bear. I was freaked out a little bit because he was all tattooed, all sleeved. Okay, this is back in 89, 88. So that wasn't the norm back then, right?
Yeah.
That was this dude just got out of prison look, right? And he was actually really good with the kids, and he was telling him all his tattoos were cartoons. And it was really cute, actually. Okay. And I thought I was going to get in trouble. I thought I was going to get fired, but I didn't. And some things ended up happening with the cousin that I was living with. I don't know what the problem was, Lou. She wasn't very nice. And I promised that it wasn't me. I promise. I was doing everything I could to people please, be quiet as a little mouse. You know what I mean? All the things that she said before I moved in didn't happen. I was paying, whatever it was back then, a month to live in the bedroom with the cat box. You know what I mean? I was supposed to have the downstairs basement and have, you know what I mean? Have an actual apartment to myself and get on with my life. It just wasn't happening that way. And he came over to the house with some flowers, as a matter of fact. And I went to get a vase to put them in. And she came in the kitchen and she ripped the flowers out of the vase, all pissed off, and got a Slurpee cup out of the cupboard and put him in a Slurpee cup. And looked at me, and I can't remember what she said. And I looked at her and I looked at him, and I was like, whatever the fuck just happened. And we walk out, and he goes, what was that? I said, I honestly have no idea. I really don't know what the problem is. I'm unsure, but nothing that I do with this person is right ever. And so it was like, it put me right back in that place of nothing I could do was right. And so he said, you know what? I've got a condo. I have an extra bedroom. You come stay with me. So that's what I did, Lou. And it just wasn't good from there. He was an actually really good guy. He was a good person. He was a good guy. He was trying to be on the right path also.
Yeah.
He had been in prison for 7 years at that point, got out, and he was trying to live right. He was trying to do good. He was trying to do better. He was involved with the motorcycle arena and the whole thing too, but he was trying to do better, live right, had a job, all those things. Well, his brother actually came and stayed with us too. And his brother got in some trouble and decided that he didn't want to be in trouble and didn't want to go to jail. So he was going to tell the police that his brother, the one that I was living with, did all these things and was this horrible person. And let's get him in trouble and snitch on him so I don't have to go to jail, right?
Oh.
Well, that also included me and threw me under the bus. Okay. And I didn't even know the extent of everything that he said or what was going on at that point. I was very unclear of what was happening. And I know that Tony ended up getting arrested in a very bad way. Helicopter, SWAT, the whole thing, flying down on him in the middle of the street. And I'm at preschool and he's supposed to pick me up that night. And he actually calls the preschool with everything he had going on. I'll never forget this. And I don't know if I've ever said this to him, but he actually called the preschool and did a collect call to where I was at and said, I'm not going to be able to pick you up tonight. You might want to turn on the news. Said,
Oh my goodness.
And I, looking back on that, he was concerned about picking me up from, like, I had not really had that at that point. You know what I mean? He was actually concerned about me with everything that he had going on. And Tony, when you hear this, because I know you'll listen to it, thank you for that. Because I don't think I've ever said thank you for that to you. But then I had to figure out how to get back to the house, right? So one of the other preschool teachers took me back to where I lived. And you got to remember, I hadn't lived there for that long. I wasn't even sure how to get there. Like, we had to figure it out. And she got me there. And when I got back to my apartment, it was all full of cops. There was cops everywhere and it was full of cops. And you got to remember my mindset back then. I was still a little angry. I still maybe had some anger issues. And I got in there.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Do you remember how exactly long you was there in Colorado when this happened?
Yep. Remember exactly. I went there in March and I got arrested in June, which I haven't got to that part yet. So March, April.
All right. Okay. I got you. Go ahead.
So
I'm listening. This.
It don't take me long to get in trouble, Lou.
Joe, I'm telling you right now, this is why I had to have you on, and this is getting better and better. I'm telling you. But go ahead, continue, please.
Yeah. So I won't get into the whole story about how Tony got arrested and all that. It's a long story, but
yeah.
And so I go to the house and they were sitting in the house, and this detective, I'll never forget him. He had his feet up on the coffee table. And I don't see. Okay, thank you for that face, Lou. Because
so he just made himself at home and shit.
Yes.
He just waiting there and make himself at home. Like he probably asked you for like some snacks and some
Yes.
meat too.
And it pissed me off, right? So instead of just shutting my mouth and not saying anything, what do you think I got to do? I got to pop off and be an asshole and be like, "What the fuck, dude? What are you doing with your feet on my coffee table?" Like, that's so rude, right? Well, he didn't like that, and I could have said it nicer, right? But it just really caught me off guard. And I was like, what are you doing here? And he said, well, I could ask you the same question. I was like, I live here. And he's like, oh, do you now? And just being a complete a-hole. And I'm like, what is happening? Right. So they had already been searched the whole place, done all these things. And he told me he was waiting for a search warrant. And I'm like, so you just came in, made yourself at home, got your feet on the table, waiting for a search warrant? And I'm like, that's bullshit. You know, you've already looked through this place. That's bullshit. Or you wouldn't be in here. So he's asking me, now you got to remember what I've been through in my life. I'm pretty schooled at this point in my world, right? So he starts saying, well, where are you from? And I told him, I'm from San Diego. And he goes, no, you're not.
Where else am I from then? Yeah,
I said, oh, really? And he said, yeah. And I said, please tell me. I would love to hear your version. Let's hear it. Where am I from? And he said, San Francisco. Well, it dawned on me that my luggage tag was still on my bag upstairs and it said San Francisco because that's where I came through when I came to Colorado. I took the train out. So now I knew this mother effer had been up searching the house, right? Because that was in the room upstairs. And I'm like, oh, really? So then, then I'm just fucking with him now because I already know that they went through the whole house and done all this stuff. So I was an asshole. I could have shut up. So he told me, you're either going to be an arrestee or you're going to be a witness. And I said, well, I can't be an arrestee because I haven't done a damn thing. And I can't be a witness because I don't even know what the hell you're doing here. So when he finally presented the search warrant, there was all kinds of things on the search warrant. They were looking for AR-15s, AK-47s. They were looking for heroin. They were looking for all of this shit. And I'm like, what? So I was like, what have I done? Like, what have I gotten myself into? Right. I'd only been there about 2 or 3 weeks at this point. I don't even know all what the hell's going on. Yeah.
Hold on, let me
I
digest
know
that right there.
bad, Lou, it's bad.
You've only been there for 2 weeks.
Yes.
As soon as you step off the train, somebody asks you to party.
Yeah.
You haven't been there.
Mhm.
You've been there for 2 weeks, and you got a
Yeah.
cop who already searched your crib already. He said
Yeah.
he's waiting for a search warrant. He already searched it already.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I'm trying to take this in.
Yeah, I
But
was too.
okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. That's a lot, because when people see this, they're gonna be like, "What the fuck?"
Thank you for watching the show. Please like, subscribe, comment. Stay tuned next week for another exciting episode on Let's Talk About It.